Certainly, we can practice stillness while sitting down, like, for example, during a meditation. We can also practice stillness in what one could consider to be a fast-paced environment, like, for example, in New York City. Today, I would like to discuss reactivity, polarity, as well as stillness in a way that contributes to you actualizing your vision in a flow-based way. I would like to refer to the Principle of Polarity chapter from the book The Kybalion, and I trust that you will enjoy and benefit greatly from today's conversation. Thus, I titled today's conversation Mind Map, Remaining on the Path in a Flow-Based Way. Lately, I've been asked a number of questions to describe stillness. We've been discussing stillness lately, being still and knowing that I am. I would like to tie this into what the Kybalion refers to as the principle of polarity. In that chapter, it states, everything is dual, everything has poles, everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree. Extremes meet. All truths are but half-truths. All paradoxes may be reconciled. All paradoxes may be reconciled by knowing absolute truth, by being still and knowing that I am. Absolute truth. From the premise of being as I am, like we discussed in Sunday's video, I'll link in the description to it, clarity automatically arises, and practically speaking, in relation to the various initiatives, in relation to the various conversations, in relation to the various aspects on the journey to actualizing your vision, true self-expression, definite major purpose, definite chief aim. Clarity arises and you know what to say, what not to say, what to do, or what not to do. And you find that all of that happens naturally from the premise of being as I am. Now, polarity, the principle of polarity, they describe it as following. A knowledge of the existence of this great Hermetic principle will enable the student to better understand their own mental states and those of other people. They will see that these states are all matters of degree, and seeing thus, they will be able to raise or lower the vibration at will, to change their mental poles and thus be master of their mental states instead of being their servant and slave. Light and darkness are poles of the same thing, with many degrees between them. Heat and cold are identical in nature, the differences being merely a matter of degrees. Let's explore this. So if you walk into a room and you have one of those adjustable dimmer lights, and if you would desire the light to be at a particular level, you would turn up the dial to that particular level. The same is to be said about everything in life. Although it may appear as one way or another, which we can call that dichotomous thinking, black and white thinking, there are actually varying degrees in between. Practically speaking, when I released the video on Sunday, I saw one of the questions asked, what was the distinction between derealization and disentangling your mind from the evidence of the senses? What I was referring to particularly, specifically in that video, was in relation to appearances that deny the vision, we have the ability to disentangle our mind from the evidence of the senses. Mind is in essence blank, and we place in mind thoughts which form beliefs, thought formations. And if the individual is identified with a particular belief, it can result in reactivity or polarization to a particular appearance, in which then we say a person becomes identified to that appearance. For example, in business, let's say they are working on 5 deals. The definite chief aim is to earn $50,000 a month. They're working on 5 deals. Now, one of the deals, they really want that deal to go through. And they're determining their happiness on whether the deal goes through or not. That is identification. In other words, they believe that if the deal does not go through, then they're not happy. If the deal goes through, then they are happy. That is conditional happiness. What I'm speaking of is being still and knowing that I am is happiness, regardless of appearances. Thus, you are depolarized in relation to appearances by being still. Now, from this premise, an idea may arise in relation to that particular deal. For me, for example, I may start focusing on the other deals rather than identifying with the appearance of the other deal having gone through before I can experience happiness. I be still in the moment, depolarizing. It's fine. And I focus on the other initiatives. And even if that other deal did not go through, I still end up achieving my definite chief aim. I've seen this many times. The individual may think that they have to have it a particular way based on dichotomous thinking in order to achieve their definite chief aim. They are attached to the appearances on the journey to actualizing the vision. That is an example of an individual identified to appearances, which is the result of belief identification. Because truly, they transcend the appearances. They choose, either consciously or subconsciously, how they relate to the appearances, whether they are aware of it or not. So, polarization, if one is reactive, such as an example given just now, they become attached to the appearances, which generates suffering, rather than allowing the appearances to be. So then they could see what to do precisely. Just as, for example, hot and cold, which it says, heat and cold are identical in nature, the differences being merely a matter of degrees. So an individual walks into a room. It is colder than they would like it to be. They turn up the heat, maybe a few degrees, maybe 5, maybe 10. They put the temperature to the desired degree. They wouldn't necessarily go and turn up the heat all the way, maybe for a certain amount of time so that the room would heat up. Now, this can be looked at as a very obvious example when we look at light and darkness, heat and cold. Yet, the individual might not be aware that they are biasing to one way or another. They forget that in the various experiences of life, as it was stated in the beginning here, everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pair of opposites. Like and unlike are actually the same. Opposites are identical in nature, but different in degree, in appearances. Extremes meet, all truths are but half-truths, as in, a person might say, this room is too cold. Based on what? Their opinion? Is it absolutely too cold? That's a relative, subjective experience. Each individual might desire a different temperature in the room. So, what is it that the individual truly desires? Well, if we go straight to the end, as we mentioned in Sunday's video, what the individual truly desires is to be as I am. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. All I truly desire is to be as I am, for I and the Father are one. Yet we experience what we truly desire from the premise of being that I am, by being still in relation to appearances. Because where is the identification occurring? In the individual mind. So the individual can be still in relation to identification or polarization. They become polarized to an appearance. Think of, for example, when people consume information on politics. They may become polarized to what the politicians are saying. And as a result of being polarized to what the politicians are saying, they may not think for themselves accurately from the premise of being as I am. This is all occurring in the individual mind in relation to the appearances. And by that I mean the information presented. Everything in the appearances of life, the individual is assigning meaning to it, either consciously or from subconscious beliefs. And no shame and condemnation. If the individual appears to be polarized to information, we release identification to that polarization, which is spawned from belief within. In other words, attachment to appearances is generated from identification to a particular belief in mind that corresponds to an appearance, which plays out the theater with the appearance. So, by being still, and we'll talk about how to do this, the individual knows that I am, realizes that the individual transcends the appearances. Depolarization is otherwise referred to as being neutral. Why is that the case? Well, when the individual acknowledges that they already are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, they seek nothing in this external appearance world. They realize they have love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. They are love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. And from this depolarized, authentic way of being, who they are, peace, they're able to purely observe, pure observation, as I've been calling. I like how Ramana Maharshi said it one time. It will come all right in the end. It will come all right in the end. As in, you know what to say, what not to say, do, not do in relation to appearances by being still and knowing that I am. So here are 7 ways I practice stillness. There are infinity ways to practice stillness. You can practice stillness sitting down. You can practice stillness by walking. Every moment and any moment is an opportunity to practice stillness, depolarization. From being as I am, pure observation. And we realize and experience that it will come all right in the end. Number one is breathe. This has been my go-to for years. If the individual is polarized to an appearance, take a deep breath in and out. Stillness. Again, in and out. Clarity arises. The individual is no longer identified to the appearances. They have successfully, as applicable, disentangled their mind from the evidence of the senses, because the mind is made up of beliefs. And it is the beliefs that are resulting in attachment to appearances. As mind is purified by being still. This is one of the ways that we could do it, breathing. I wouldn't consider one of these ways better than another. As the individual abides as the stillness, clarity arises. They know what to do, what not to do, what to say, what not to say in relation to the appearances. It will come all right in the end. From the end, the kingdom of heaven is within. Now, I am that. Love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. You realize that I am experientially by releasing the control, releasing the identification to the appearances, letting the world be. Number two, during interactions. So I love communication with other people because I realize at the absolute truth level, there is no other. And others appear to reflect what I imagine about them, as we discussed in our Neville Goddard conversations. So during interactions, the individual is aware of what they are identifying to the appearances, their conversations, what another individual says or doesn't say. And if they become polarized, there's the opportunity. What I do during interactions is real time, and you get better at this with practice, is I realize I transcend the thoughts in relation to the appearances, in relation to this conversation, that the I is identified with, the individual I. I think this, I believe this person to be this way or that way. Being aware of what the individual is identified with, I be still and know that I am, transcendent to the individual interpretations of the outer appearances of life. Being still and knowing that I am love, I automatically imagine the individual loving me, and the interaction goes in a harmonious way, a mutually harmonious way. Number three, during tasks. So I have a schedule, and I'm committed to my various initiatives, various consulting arrangements. I'm also committed to making these videos, committed to different aspects of my personal life, business life, etc. And there's also room for spontaneity. Yet, wherever I appear, I'm one with the experience. So we could say physically integrated, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And I'm aware of the degree that I am relating to the physical experience, ideally. Because if it's not from the premise of being I am, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment, then that is revealed in the polarization. Because consider this again. You know exactly what that means to you when I say, all you truly desire is to be as you are. All I truly desire is to be as I am. You know exactly what that means. This is what it's meant by all paradoxes may be reconciled. All truths are but half-truths. Practical example. I build a business in my certain way. Another individual builds their business in their certain way. What could appear as competition actually reconciles by doing a business deal together. So a dichotomous way of thinking could be, I'm going to win and they're going to lose, or they're going to win and I'm going to lose. That's dichotomous thinking. True way of being is love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. There's always a harmonious relationship between the two businesses. I remember one time I had this speed reading website, speedreadingzone.com. And I used to do this partnership deal with Iris Reading, where I would build an email list and provide information to those that subscribe to the email list who are interested in learning how to speed read. And then I would offer them Iris Reading courses, and I would get paid a percentage for every sale that I brought Iris Reading. By the way, Paul and I, the founder of Iris Reading, did a conversation on speed reading. If you're interested in that, I'll link in the description to it. I was approached by another vendor, which could have been looked at as competition, who wanted me to promote their products to my website. I actually worked a deal, Iris Reading, Ace Reader, and myself, and everyone benefited. What could be looked at as competing businesses is not actually true. If we go beyond the dichotomous thinking, we will realize that there is no other. That true fundamental reality is all in harmony and in contribution in a mutually harmonious way with everyone. And this is a practice. We realize this more so each day in every way by being still and knowing that I am. So during interactions, that was an example. During tasks, I stay committed to the task from a state of flow. I put together a flow series. I recommend watching that. It articulates it clearly. I do each task, I perform each task from a state of flow. I don't go about the task frustrated, I don't want to be there, not present. I do them from a state of flow. Again, again, and again. Flow state to flow state to flow state to flow state. I remain in the flow. Number 4, you could schedule time to be still. Schedule some time to meditate, be still, abide as you are. Mind purifies during meditation. Mind purifies in moments of stillness. Which brings me to number 5. Stillness spaces. So some like going to nature. There are particular places that I go to in different parts of the world. I was in California last week. I shared one of the spaces with you, Redondo Beach. I'll link in the description to the video. That's one of my spaces that I go to, and particular places in those environments that I go to where I feel a deep connection with the all. I and the Father are one. Some refer to this as sacred places. It could be your office space. It could be a room that you set up. It could be your garden. I also find it, for example, during hobbies such as snowboarding. I even know particular slopes on particular mountains where I experience this, what I'm referring to right here, for whatever the reason may be, more profoundly. I take inventory of these areas. And since I make flow a priority, I go to these areas. I practice this more often. Again, as applicable. As applicable to the point where we notice more so each day, mind is purifying, identification is released to beliefs that result in attachment to appearances. We're allowing the world to be. We acknowledge, as Ramana Maharshi said, it will come all right in the end. Being as I am, love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Everything appears that way more so each day in increasing frequency on a continuous basis. Number 6, calming music. Whatever you consider to be calming music. And I may even make playlists of hand-selected music where I notice that I am still, during the experience of listening to that music, clarity is arising. I feel at ease, flow. And number 7, autosuggestion. You can repeat to yourself again and again. Neville Goddard has a meditation. I am. I am. I am. I am. I feel bliss. I am ideal now. I am being as I am now. All of those statements point to that stillness, and the stillness arises. The stillness is experienced. And these are the various ways that I do it. You might have your own ways. Again, I wouldn't consider one way better than another. I've spoken with thousands of individuals, and I have found hundreds of different ways. And even the ways that the individuals do it that we could say are similar to how others do it, there's still variation to how they go about doing it, because they don't force themselves to do it exactly like another person does it, even though clearly it doesn't accomplish what they intend to accomplish, which is being still. And why would they do that? Well, that's because of dichotomous thinking. They think they have to do it a particular way to experience the end result. All throughout the videos, throughout the years of sharing this information, I've only shared my way of doing it. There may be similarities to the various authors that we discuss. In some regards, they might be pretty spot on as far as exactly what they say. Yet, I'm not looking around to see what others are doing and forcing myself to do it their way. I look around to see what others are doing, and I say, what's my variation of that? What is my style of doing that? That's what I teach entrepreneurs to do as well. The flow-based way of building a business. Look at the various entrepreneurs, the various businesses, and find your way. Certainly be inspired by the various successes, but release identification to any belief that says you should or need to or you have to do it that way if it doesn't feel natural It is not being as you are. So, depolarization, as applicable, on the journey to actualizing your vision. So again, being still and knowing that I am, as applicable, disentangling your mind from the evidence of the senses, is distinct from what is referred to in psychology as depersonalization or derealization, which is something that an individual experiences during trauma, violence, abuse, or extreme stress. What is being taught here is in relation to appearances on the journey to actualizing your vision. If identification occurs in an inharmonious, inauthentic way, you can in that moment be still and know that I am. Realize that you transcend the appearances to authentically reimagine it from the premise of being who you truly are, thus not forming labels or beliefs in relation to the experiences, and I've had a number of these experiences in my life as well, in a way that suggests that you are not love, happiness, peace, bliss, fulfillment. Depolarization is returning to the center of your being. I like how James Allen once said it in the book, The Heavenly Life. He said the secret of life, of abundant life, is to find the divine center within oneself and to live in and from that. As Ramana Maharshi said, it will come all right in the end. So I trust you found this video to be helpful. Let's conclude this with an auto-suggestion to further encourage. You could say, from stillness, being as I am, pure observation is apparent in relation to what appears on the journey to actualizing my vision. From the premise of being as I am, attention automatically goes in the direction that is related to my vision. This becomes easier and easier each moment as I remain abiding in and from my ideal state of consciousness, being as I am. True self-acceptance, experienced as true self-expression in and as the various aspects of the journey to actualizing my vision in a flow-based way. If you would like a copy of this mind map, the link is in the description. Thank you very much for watching. I'll talk with you soon. Take care.